Oh la 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 la. Bam bam. Oh la 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 la. Bam bam. Oh la 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 la. Bam bam. Oh la 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 la. Big it up. Oh la 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 la. Big it up. Oh la 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 la. Bam bam. Bir ba 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 bir ba bir de. Bir ba ba ba. Bir ba mi de. Bir ba 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 bir ba 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 bir ba mi de. Bir ba ba ba.
Greetings and welcome to Home and Away Jamaica. I'd like to say hello from Paulette Price and my co-host
Robert Taylor, Taylor Law.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about architecture. In particular, we want to highlight points that would be of importance to people in the diaspora, but not only the people in the diaspora as well. We also want to relate to those people who are local to Jamaica. Today, our guest is Hugo Matthews, who's an architect. Hugo will obviously introduce himself, but like we always say, we want you to deal with the professionals when doing business in Jamaica. So Hugo Matthews, can you please just introduce yourself, tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll get into the meat of the subject.
Okay. Thank you, Paulette and Robert. I'll keep it short and sweet. So Hugo Matthews is the name. Went to school in Jamaica and I also trained in Jamaica at University of Technology, through the Caribbean School of Architecture. So that's where I got all of my training. And my first job, funny enough, was actually in engineering. So I worked for Bouygues Travel Public, who were working on Highway 2000 at the time, and they needed somebody to draw their office. So I got put on to them, drew their office, and they say, "Hey, by the way, you know anything about bridges?" I said, "Sure." I didn't have a job at the time. So, I decided.
Sounds good.
What could a bridge be? So, they hired me on the spot and I stayed there for 4 years. And then I went back and did my master's, worked for two of the top architectural firms in Jamaica at the time, absorbing as much as I could from my two bosses, Mr. Bernal and Mr. Morris, and, getting myself ready because I always knew I wanted to start my own firm at some point. So I absorbed as much as I could from the two. And, after working for, 5, 6 years with them, I was able to, 2 years with Brian, and, both of them are actually Brian's. Both bosses' first name is actually Brian. So after working with them, maybe I spent 7 years in total working for them. Then I was able to start my own firm with my good friend from school. Both of us went to architecture together. So we started our firm together after that. So in a nutshell, that's me, that's my firm. That's my education and my journey to get to where I am now.
Hugo,
Right.
tell some of our listeners and viewers, as much as you can, some of the legacy projects you've worked on, both across maybe the residential and perhaps commercial spectrum.
Okay, sure. All right, so we're a young firm. The firm was started in 2015, but to be honest, we're a bit aggressive in the market. And by aggressive, I just mean, a little bit forward thinking. And we work hard. So we created a sort of methodology to our work, which generates a lot of work in a short space of time. So we started in 2015, but the amount of work, finished work that we have on the landscape is quite a bit. And you can almost say that the firm almost started a new movement. So, 20 South Avenue, that was us. We did 20 South Avenue. We did, which is a 10-story building in the Havantry area. We also did the Surbiton 6-story building, which is just a stone's throw away from there. That is also completed. We did the somewhat controversial project, but not really. I guess it's just a name only. Persons call it the Cholera Ground, but it's called St. James Park, and that's the new Fontana. So we built that, we designed and managed that through the construction process as well. That is also completed. We've just recently essentially completed Parkhurst 1, which is another 8-story building just behind 20 South. We also did the very iconic Usain Bolt building, which is a 6-story building on Havantry Road. So we've done a lot of work. We've also done projects like Valley Vista, which is like a townhouse concept. and that's in Stony Hill. We've also just recently completed another set of townhouses on Hopefield Avenue. We're completing one on Salisbury. So the scale and scope of our work is quite a bit. We did some BPOs in Montego Bay, and we have a lot more work coming out. So in a nutshell, most of our jobs are multifamily residential, but we've also done commercial projects. The new Burt's building on Mullines Road also completed. We did that, and we have some projects under construction now, also commercial. We are doing a commercial building on Phoenix Avenue in the New Kingston off Hope Road area. So that is under construction now, slated to be completed in December this year. And then we have a slew of other projects coming up behind those. So in our short 5 years, we have done a lot, and we're looking to do a whole lot more with our just our signature on the landscape, and also we want to create. Well, what we try to do is we try to create a modern aesthetic with tropical sort of textures and feel and that sort of thing. Give the project a little bit of a vibe, and for want of a better word, to make the projects a little sexy. And we try to appeal to the sensibilities of persons who want something modern, who want something chic, who want something to respond to the climatic conditions that we operate in. We want something sustainable, energy efficient, and we try to put all of those things in all of our buildings. And I think for the most part, our clients have been happy, and we want to keep them happy and get more clients as we move along.
Okay, so if I was a client in the diaspora and I heard about all these projects that you've worked on, I'd be like, wow. And then I would say to myself, I wonder if I could afford working with these architects, because they sound as though they do all these very grand projects. Do you do projects on the lower end of the scale, or is it only very high-end developments and commercial?
Okay, so good question. We take you where you want to go. We're fortunate to have gotten the large-scale projects, but we also do small-scale projects. We do single-family residencies as well. So we've done some residencies in Cherry Gardens, and we're doing residencies in Havendale area. We are doing some a lot of persons want they're moving up the hill, Stony Hill and so we've also been approached to do low-income housing developments in Clarendon. So in fact, we have developed, we're trying to develop a low-income model that we want to put forward. So we've been on our own time. We've been experimenting with something that's nice, something that's comfortable, and we do that on our own time. We take what is called sort of like a shared designing time, and we just come together, the partners, the architects in our office, and we use that time or downtime to create these cost-effective housing solutions that we can actually put them on the market at some point, or we can put them on the market if let's say somebody like a NHD or a HAJ approaches and say, hey, we want a low-income solution. We have this model or models that we put together that we think can certainly occupy that space. On an individual one-to-one level, if persons want to modify, want to purchase property and build a residential home, we certainly do that too. And you mentioned fees and expense. I think you had mentioned it might be expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think we try to convince persons to think about it in a different sort of way. Don't really think about how much you pay the architect, because we work at a particular rate. Any house is expensive, and it's a very, very, very important investment, and you don't want to make any mistakes. And if you're gonna make mistakes, we're all human. You want to keep it as minimum as possible. And we pride ourselves in taking the time and effort in learning everything as much about the house as we can. Even though we're architects and we are sort of like a material engineer in a way, we want to learn about the electrics, we want to learn about the plumbing, we want to ensure that all the trades work together well, so that the money that you put into your investment, your lifetime investment, makes sense at the end of the day. So it's better to make 100 changes with a pencil than one change with a hammer. And we try to teach all of our clients that. So let us not think about the cost for the architect. I'll give you what the rates are at some point. But I think the more important thing is you don't want to waste the money in your lifetime investment. Something that you're going to sit in your house every day. You're going to sit down, you're going to have a cup of tea, you want to look at your walls, and you want to be comfortable and happy within the space. And, you know, peace of mind is priceless, I think.
So, all right, let's just say somebody listening to this, they've never used an architect before. They know that they want a house, probably about, let's say, 1,000 square feet. When they come to you, how do you take them through that process? What are the things that they need to start doing? How long does it take? Are you there to hold their hands all the way through? What is that? Because remember, they don't know anything about starting with an architect or building a house. Because I get that question a lot. Should I build or should I buy? So let's just say now they're thinking of building.
Okay, great.
How would you guys go?
Beautiful. We love to start with that first initial meeting. A lot of the times, persons, they have the land, but they're not aware of the different things that go into getting it from the land into you know, actual concrete, steel, glass, doors, you know. So we are there from the start to the very end. So all of our what we as architects do, well, what we at Virtuoso Architect do, and it's likely that all other architects, professionals will do this as well. They take you from design, all the ideation, all the way through to fruition, to the end of the build. We hold your hand through the submission to the approval agencies, get the approval, and we also hold your hand through the construction process, we do some quality control and guide you through to the end where we sign off. So let's take you through the actual process. I'm going to itemize it, the actual thing that will happen now.
Yeah.
So you come to me and you say, I have a piece of land and I want to build a 1,000 square foot house. The first question I'm going to ask you is, I might ask you what is your budget, but a more pertinent question that I would probably ask is, tell me about the look and feel. What is it that you want to accomplish? I need to know the materials that you want to put in this thing, because at that time I can know how to design and I can give you some sort of ballpark estimate of what your end cost is going to be. So you tell me, hey, look, I want all high-end fixtures. You might come back, somebody might say, you know, I don't need all the high-end fixtures. I want to go with some porcelain tiles, but I want ceramic tiles on the walls. So from that initial conversation, I can say, okay, your house is going to be $10,000 per square foot, or your house is going to be $15,000 per square foot. And that in and of itself will start to give you an idea of your budget. Yeah. I also always tell persons that, hey, look, you're the architect, but I would advise that you get a structural engineer as well if you're doing a 2-story structure, or even a 1-story structure. You might be on a hillside and we want to ensure that everything we're doing is properly done. So the full team of persons are, and I will tell them from the outset, you need your structural engineer. You need your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer. Okay. Persons always say, what is mechanical? It's usually AC. And then you need the electrical and your plumbing. Your plumbing engineer deals with all the water coming into your house. Your civil engineer deals with all the water coming out of the house. So I say we need all of those people to ensure that if you turn on a pipe in your master bedroom, you're not turning off a pipe in the kitchen when somebody's trying to do dishes. You want to ensure that the pressure is the same throughout. So we tell them that we need all of our professionals. Once the design is done, we need our quantity surveyor. He is the person that will generate your cost estimate, actual cost estimate. When you come to me, I will give you a very loose preliminary budget estimate based on your square footage and based on what you tell me you want. So you will have a ballpark figure. That quantity surveyor is going to tell you exactly what your building is going to cost based on everything that we've put into it. If the figure comes out and it's okay with you, we'll move forward. If the figure comes out and it's a little bit too high, we'll do some value engineering at that time. We'll take some things out to ensure that the budget is where you need it to be, so that you know once you start, there's no problem finishing. We don't want when you start, something happens, and all of a sudden the figures come into you and you had no idea that it was that. So we try to avoid all of that, or we bring down the levels of potential what do I call it now? Any kind of potential thing, unforeseen items. We bring that down as far as we possibly can. So we get that out of the way. The next thing that they will need to do, depending on which parish, you have to submit your drawing to the agency. In America, they call it submitting it to the city. I don't know what they call it in England or wherever, but we submit our drawings to the parish council. And the parish council will then go through normally a 30-day process. That's what they advertise. It may take a little longer, it may take maybe a little shorter, but they meet twice per month, usually. So normally for a house, for a single family residence, it will probably take 30 days, maybe go to 60 days. But for the most part, we're looking at about 30-day turnaround time for your submission and approval, if there's no glaring fault. If you're building on a hillside and it's in the hillside policy, or you're on a fault line, that may cause some concern and spread out your approval time a little longer. There's a fee that comes with submitting your drawings, and that I think is 180 Jamaican dollars per square foot. Don't quote me, but I think it's that. Once that is done, and you have your approved drawings and you're ready to build, you send out your quantity surveying document to the contractors, who will then bid on your drawing. And if they come close to the price that the quantity surveyor told you, you can make a selection based on that, and then you're off to the races. You can commence building your project. So, in a not so much of a nutshell, I know it's a little bit lengthy in the explanation, but those are the milestones that would happen if you're gonna build your house. So let me just do it quickly again. Architects, professionals, quantity surveyor, submit your drawing. You submit your drawing to the contractors for pricing. Once the contractor is selected, you go ahead and you break ground and you build.
To what extent, Hugo, do you get involved in what we call and you call value engineering? So, many prospective home builders have this concept of what they want, but certainly from an efficiency and cost effective perspective, what can be designed may not be the most cost effective. How do you advise clients when you encounter these concerns?
Okay. All right. So a lot of the times I will see quite often, the concept of budget, or I shouldn't say the concept of budget, the concept of price is usually an issue. There's a price for the product itself, and there's a price to install the product, and there's a markup. So there are three things that goes into every bit of your construction project. So if you're going to buy a door, you might walk into a store and you say, oh, this door costs $10. And then when you look at the contractor's pricing, you see $22. You can't understand why. The contractor is going to buy the door, he's going to transport the door, he is going to ask somebody to install the door, and then he's going to charge you something on top of that. So the first thing that I try to identify or explain to persons is, this is what you're going to expect. So once they tell me all the things that they want, I can say, all right, cool. This thing, even though it seems simple, there's a cost that comes with it. And the more custom things you have in there is the more, potential that the price will increase. So once we start to speak to clients and we get an idea of their budget, we can start the value engineering starts right away. Once we know what the budget is and they give me an item and say, hey, look, this is likely to cost a lot of money. So how about doing it this way instead? How about let's approach, instead of getting that scammer in the kitchen, let's approach a local carpenter and see if this guy can give you the quality that you want. Instead of doing this though, let's try this one instead. I know it's not the exact thing that you wanted, but it looks good on the outside. It's mass produced. You can get it. It has a really good finish. We can use this product instead of that product. There's a vast number of ways we can say, all right, I know you want that extra study, but let's think about your lifestyle. How do you use your current space right now? I remember, and I will never forget this. One of the very first houses that I did, the clients, it was a husband and wife team, and they wanted to build now the dream house, and they said, we want this master bathroom, which this really nice master shower and this wonderful soap. So I had a conversation with the clients, and I said, how do you use your current bathroom right now? And they said, what is our shower? No tub. I said, how often do you actually soak? They said, it don't matter, Hugo. I want a soaking tub. I always wanted a soaking tub, and I am going to use that soaking tub. The tub was $5,000 US, and I said, boy, that's expensive. Anyways, so the house was done and complete, and I put in this wonderful soaking tub. And the first day that they took over, they moved in, the client called me and said, Hugo, you know where I am right now? I said, where? He says, I am in my soaking tub. And he laughed. Anyway, you know, I had a good laugh with it because I was saying that he won't use it. I ran into him about 5 years after the project was done. And you know, we got to talking, you know, not about the project. And then he just occurred to me and said, hey, tell me about your soaking tub. Are you still using it? He said, Hugo, but you know, so it's closing a soaking tub right now. It's one time I ever use it.
Yeah, so I think that's a very good example. Hugo, given, you know, I get the sense that your experience really spans a broad spectrum, not just the design and form, but given the range of developments that you are and have been involved in. For those persons listening and watching and in the diaspora in particular, and they're thinking of building in Jamaica, what would your guidance be in terms of maybe location? Many persons may have left a particular community when they migrated, and that community may have changed. Maybe it lacks infrastructure, lacks access to, you know, primary roads and schools and so on. In your experience, even more so from a resale and marketability standpoint, where are the areas in Jamaica you would recommend for someone looking to come home that you've kind of seen just from your perspective as those hot points?
Okay. All right, thank you. That question, I'm sure can span between myself and also Paulette. But I'm going to speak from my point of view and what clients have come to me with, and sort of, you know, because even before the value engineering of it all, even before we start to even put the project on the ground, what we try to do at Virtuosa, in fact, I'm not even going to say we try, we do it. We always do a feasibility sort of study. Somebody comes to me and say, hey, look, I have 5 acres of property in this particular area. I went away for a number of years and I come back and I want to do a New York loft style thing. You know, the first thing we're going to say is, all right, how are we going to make money with that? You know, how are you going to make money with it? And there have been times, I won't divulge the actual locations, but I'll say it this way. Kingston is good. You know, Kingston proper is good in terms of apartments and townhouses. The townhouses, I think, right now might be in a little bit more of a demand right now. Apartments might be a little bit oversubscribed based on what I've been seeing. I know persons want townhouse and persons want 3-bedroom. It's just that due to certain parameters surrounding the what are the requirements from the agencies, due to the parameters, your ability to make some money from as a developer, you know, the apartment and the 2-bedroom concept prevails. However, persons we've been finding really want a 3-bedroom sort of option, and it's not available. For the most part, it's not available. So Kingston is great. We're finding that Mandeville is also good for usually townhouse and potential apartments. And we find that Montego Bay is also great for apartments and detached housing opportunities and developments. And for rural areas, and I would say country, for rural areas, we find that middle income detached are very good option. Some areas, apartments, I mean, in Kingston, apartments is a no-brainer. It's where the urban shift is. Young professionals are coming to Kingston. That's where a lot of the work is. I know I want to decentralize and go into other areas, but that's another discussion. But for the most part, if you're talking about apartments, you can't lose with Kingston. I mean, it will always sell. Plus, persons abroad, they invest in those properties and use them for investment properties where they can make some money, whether it's Airbnb or other types of rental. So, for just to answer that quick point, those are your bread and butter areas. Now, the other thing that we want to talk about just a little bit is we need to, if somebody's coming and they have a piece of property and they tell me what they want to do with it, just based on my not even research, but just based on the market and based on what we've seen selling, we will tell them, hey, look, we don't think that a 1,200 square foot posh building will work right there. I think you need to come down to maybe a 750 or a 800 square foot in this particular area, 1 bedroom, you know, something that is big enough that could be convertible at a later date. You provide them the infrastructure so that they can do it. But we'd have to give them that information quickly, because the fact of the matter is, and Paulette will say, you know, location. I mean, persons will buy into a location, you know. So, you know, if you have a piece of property that's right next to, let's say off Spanish Town Road somewhere, you for right now, you know, you don't want to put a high investment, high income project right here. Modest.
You know, overbuild and build beyond what the market can bear in terms of a resale. They normally say you want the cheapest house in the most expensive neighborhood, yes, not the most expensive house in the cheapest neighborhood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe just to follow up on that a little bit, the Jamaican market is getting more savvy. You know, they are getting more savvy, and I don't know if it's HGTV or
it
Property
is,
Brothers.
it is.
I don't know if it's
it is.
persons are seeing, you know, they're seeing chic interiors with the recessed lines and the clean lines, and everybody wants that. All of a sudden, to try and sell, to try to do a house that's heavily traditional with a heavy moldings and you know, the plantation style, you know, the young Jamaican being so savvy now, they're not looking at that. They want the clean lines.
Yeah.
You know, they want the modern look, you know. And, you know, we as architects and upcoming designers need to be cognizant that if you want persons to make some money, you're tapping into a market of savvy people who are looking for this type of aesthetic.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. So the other thing I would like to ask you is, we've heard all the positive things, but what happens if something goes wrong? Because we've had somebody send in a question, basically, and this is a real life event. So what they said is, they had their plans drawn up by a professional architect, and they paid over $100,000 Jamaican dollars for that. The plans were approved by the parish council, and when they went to the builders now to get quotes, the builders are saying they can't use the plan because the house is too big for the land. So one, and I'm assuming it's another builder, must have said to them that they need to get new plans, and then, but they don't need to resubmit to the parish council. But that person wants to charge them another 250,000 Jamaican dollars. So who's there to protect those kind of mistakes, issues? Well, what would you advise?
Well, first, I would advise that they should ensure that they are in fact using a professional, licensed, and registered architect.
Where do they go to check that? How do they know where to go and check that? Okay,
well, you have the ARB, which is the Architects Registration Board, and it's online. So you can check on that and you can see the list of registered architects. You can also call the offices and they can, you know, advise of a list of architects. So they'll tell you who are registered.
Yeah.
It's not the first time I've heard of a situation where the house is too big for the land. And that is a glaring error. And that's because somebody didn't do some due diligence. It's either the surveyor's report or the surveyor drawing was not done properly, or there might have been. I've seen situations where you have a scaling issue. One drawing was done in, let's say, meters, and when it was sent to the architect's office, it was converted to inches, and then you have a scale.
Yeah.
So you're thinking that, and I've seen it done even in my office. I've seen where the scale is just wrong. I say, hold on, this scale is off. So you have to do all of your checks, you have to do right up. So when you come to us, we ask you for some documents. We ask you for the surveyor's ID report. And the surveyor's ID report will give us the information to say if the property is in general, if it's in the general
conformity
of the property. So they will say if the property is is if the boundary is outside or a boundary has encroached on you or you encroach somewhere else, the size, and it will tell you the area. It will tell you the area. The area of the property is 5 acres. We ask you for your title as well because, and this is very important, the parish council will not accept your drawing without a title. So the person who is submitting the drawing, the name of that person must correspond with the name of the person who is on the title. If that is an issue, it has to be solved because it will not go through. Because you have persons in the past who get drawings approved for somebody else's land. So because of that, it has changed and it's more stringent now. So you need to have those things in place. The next thing that you need to have is you need to have the topographical survey from the land surveyor. Now that drawing is different from your ID report. So persons will say, but I have the ID report. The ID report is a sketch. It is not the actual boundary of the property. It is a sketch to show the general shape and if it is in accordance with your title. But it's not the actual thing. So persons cannot use the ID report and put up a drawing on top of it. It will be incorrect. You get your boundary survey or your topographical survey from your surveyor, and that is sent to the architect's office so that they can check it properly. It will be in meters usually, or the surveyor might do it in feet. But all of those due diligence must be checked. Now, let's say something happened between the cup and the lip. They got the thing approved, it is back, and that scenario happened. The architect ought to change it without cost. If it is a licensed professional architect, he ought to change it without cost. You know, it will be because it would have been something that would have been his fault. You cannot release a drawing and you don't know if it can fit on the project. The only way I would say it's not the architect's fault is if a surveyor made the error. Then the architect you have to charge some money to redo it. If the client provides me with a survey drawing that is incorrect, or you ask the surveyor to make a project a little bit bigger so that your big house can fit, then that is not my fault. So we have to identify where that error occurred. Once the errors are identified, the one thing I will say is I disagree with the contractor who says it doesn't have to be resubmitted. It must be resubmitted.
Absolutely, it has to be.
Inside of the agency, because they keep a copy of your drawing, they have a copy of an incorrect drawing. They give you a copy of the approval. So they keep one set in their records and give you a set to go build.
Which makes sense.
Otherwise, there would be a breach. So
it would be a breach.
Construction, and at some point when an inspection needs to be done, there would be a boundary breach.
There would be a boundary breach. Because, you know, your title has the covenants on it, and the title also tells you what your do's and don'ts. You have to be 5 feet from the boundary, 10 feet from the boundary,
exactly.
10 feet to the eave, 10 feet to the building and not the eave. So all of these little things in your title, you have to read it carefully. Some titles will say build to the eave, which is the overhang of the roof. Some titles will say build to the edge of the building, which means the overhang can come over a little bit more. You know, it's a building to either the edge of the building or to the eave. So you have to read it carefully and apply all of that. And for the most part, the parish councils will pick up on any little error through the title. So if something happened with regards to the building being too large for the property, I would say that there may be a scale issue. Somehow the scales ended up incorrect, and that's why the building ended up being too large.
Well, Hugo, thank you very much. I believe we could go another hour. I think this is a significantly overlooked area. I mean, certainly many of our listeners, many of the persons in the diaspora are not as armed as they could. And I think the mistakes are made when it's too late. And so one of the things we try to do is arm persons with information. The concept of an architect, concept of using an attorney sometimes gives some indication of cost. And you know what we've learned and what you've said is the cost of not engaging professionals, particularly for a significant life decision, is one that's more than worth the while. So thanks for informing us. Thanks for being very engaging and covering quite a lot of material in a short space of time. And we wish you a lot of continued success. Clearly, I think Virtuoso, from what I know and see, I mean, what you described seemed almost like a lifetime of work in 5 years. So clearly, you guys are innovating and trend setting, and that's what we need to grow our economy and become trendsetters.
And I just want to add to that, Hugo, is that in the diaspora, we don't think people like you exist here. Hence the reason why we're doing this show. Because people just think that you do it the old-fashioned way. You call a builder, and he builds, and it's not quite like that. We do. There's all different choices. But if you want a nice modern house for this century and beyond, the professionals are here. So I've heard of Virtuosa, but I always wondered who they were because I like the logo and the branding that I've seen out there. And it's been an honor to meet you. So thanks very much.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Thanks, Hugo.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, so we hope we can talk again.
Yeah. All right, take care.
All right then, thank you.
Oh la 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 la, bam bam. Oh la 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 la, bam bam. Oh la 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 la, bam bam. Oh la 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 la, big it up. Oh la 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 la, big it up. Oh la 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 la.